When I was a young man, there were times in my life that absolutely flew by, and then there were other times in my life that I swear to you dragged on. It seemed like they took forever, and you would wait forever and ever for things to happen. As an older individual, I have noticed this phenomenon that I think a lot of people have, and it is that time seems to have sped up in a horrible way for me. I feel like I never have the time to get things done. I remember people saying that when I was a kid, and I thought, what on earth are you talking about? There are times when I feel like I'm just lollygagging with nothing really to do. Now, as I am these days, it really seems that time flies by. This is important because I spend a little bit of time each day listening to a few people. I listen to Dan Bongino a lot of times, Drew Berquist. And one of the guys that I listen to is Dinesh D'Souza. One of the things Dinesh likes to do is cover more sort of cultural and Christianity-based topics. Some of the time what he says is really interesting to me, and other times it's not as exciting. It's still something that I pay attention to, I pay him mind, because I think that it's worth hearing what he has to say about various things. But today on the Daily Summation from Culture, Religion, and Politics, by the way, I'm your host, and today is Thursday, the 18th of November, 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble on the podcast and on YouTube. I prefer podcast, YouTube. I'm going to get everything wrong today. I prefer Rumble if you're going to watch me, but that obviously is your choice. But today on the Daily Summation, I'm going to talk about the subject of predestination, and I'm sort of cherry-picking that out of some things that Mr. D'Souza said recently. And I want to give you some of my ideas on why predestination is not really all that controversial or difficult a doctrine to me. Let me go ahead and read my notes real quick, and once I'm done with that, I will go ahead and kind of maybe expound a little bit more on what I say in the notes. One of the more controversial doctrines in the world of Christianity is that of predestination. For my part, I believe in the idea, but maybe not in the way somebody like John Calvin might have expressed it. Because of how I perceive it, it doesn't present a problem for me. To begin with, we have to start with an idea with which a lot of people seem to have problems. Most, I just don't think, consider that idea. For others, it's hard to get their heads around it. And I get it. It is. It can be. The idea is perspective. You're going, wait, perspective is not all that odd a thing. But let me kind of get into that. You look through your eyes, and where I believe you look through your eyes, right? And where I believe God could, and you could argue maybe does, see the world through your little set of windows at times, the reality is he sees all through his mechanisms for observing. Remember, too, that part of this is that God is outside time, as I get it, and I am, at least at this point, a time-bound being. Are we talking about physical eyes where God is concerned? That I'm not smart enough to answer. The point, though, is just because God predetermines my future doesn't mean I see his plan, certainly not in toto. I can certainly see parts of what he has in mind. With regard to one's ultimate end, I don't believe that's something most folks get as part of their everyday knowledge. They'll certainly be aware of it, if they do, whether or not they choose to believe what they know. This is, I would argue, how I reconcile predestination with free will. Since I don't have the ultimate understanding where I'm destined to end up, I'm still responsible for who I am and what I do. The funny reality, because of that, or because of what I've said to this point, because of all I've said, right? I don't see predestination and free will as being incompatible. That said, how others perceive and explain either may well not be in line with what I'm saying here today. What that means is the fact that others are famous for their writings or speech or whatever on such things doesn't mean they're correct in how they look at the subject or subjects in question. To be fair, I might not, or I may find that I have mistakes with regard to those ideas as well. In fact, in some senses, I almost can't imagine things being otherwise. So, do I consider predestination to be a sound doctrine? As I've already said, I do. But when I use that term, I may not mean the same thing as those famous for exploring the idea like Mr. Calvin do. I have no problem with the reality that may be the case. So we differ. Okay, fine. Want to tell me how I'm wrong? That's what the comments on this video are for, among other things. Okay, I'm done with my notes, so let's get on discussing this. One of the things that I think a lot of people do not do well, as I said earlier on in my notes, is separate their perception from that of God. How God perceives the universe is as an omnipotent, omnipresent, eternal, out of time, extemporal being. You can't perceive life like that. And what that means is, unless somebody can tell you specifically, this is what's going to happen in your future. You're going to end up in heaven, you're going to end up in hell. Sometime down the road, you're going to die at whatever age. You may not die, you may be swept up in the air, however that happens to work. I'm not smart enough to answer that in a lot of ways. But the point I'm making is this. Unless somebody tells you where you're destined to be, you don't know. Does that mean that your every step is not ordered, is not predetermined? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Can you count God guilty of deciding where you're going before it happens? I can make an argument for that idea. Does that mean it's, quote, God's fault? Well, I believe that there's this mystical idea that you can do what you want to do, how you want to do it, and so forth, and that God will let you. He will know what it is that you're going to do before you do it, as I understand it. So it's not like it's some surprise to him, but that doesn't mean that you didn't have the opportunity to do what it was that you thought was the appropriate thing to do. It just means that that's already been factored into the big plan as far as I understand it. So is there predestination? I think absolutely there is. Do you know where you're destined to be, what's destined to happen, either for you or any other person? You might have a pretty good idea. You might be able to guess, but can you actually say with any certainty? No. That is why Paul, when he spoke about this sort of idea, spoke about the hope that was within him. He did not, people, who was it? Somebody said, and it may have been Paul again, said something like, people say, tomorrow I'm going to do this, I'm going to go here. Well, what they should be saying is, if the Lord wills, I will go here and I will do this. Right? Because you're vain if you think that you can say with any certainty that I'm going to be showing up at work tomorrow or getting a paycheck, the next time I'm supposed to get one. I don't know. I could die today. I could die right now, right here in front of the camera, and there would literally be nothing I could do about it except pass on. And so you have to understand that where your steps may be ordered, that does not mean it's somehow magically true that you know what you are destined to be. Are you predestined to a particular end? I think the answer to that is, well, actually, yes. Do you know what that end is? Well, no. If you choose to believe I can just do whatever I want to do, be whatever I want to be, you need to understand that where that may be a sign of a predestination, it is because God is able to map your life in a way that you could never imagine based on the fact that he is omniscient. He knows everything. And again, that he's extemporal, he's out of time, right? So I don't have a problem with the idea of predestination. Do I agree with what John Calvin had to say about it? I'd have to look and see more deeply what Calvin had to say about it. But I can tell you this, from my perspective, I truly believe that there is predestination. You're destined to a given course, a given end, but that doesn't mean that you have no, quote, responsibility for that. And how that all works is mysterious to me, but that doesn't make it any less true. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Thursday, the 18th of November of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Friday, that beginning of the Sabbath for those who observe it. Friday the 19th of November 2021. I know that we're moving ever closer to the weekend one way or another. Thank you for joining me on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. I appreciate your coming along. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a boxing glove or a plus on Rumble as a positive feedback. You can give me a minus sign as a negative one. If you choose to do that, you can give me a thumbs up or a like on YouTube to show me that you liked what I did or thought that it was a good thing. You can give me a thumbs down or a dislike if you choose to do that on YouTube as well. Also, remember what I said. You can always comment on what I have to say, and I'll do everything that I can to at least listen, potentially get into a discussion and respond. Keep in mind that I have the ideas that I do after a lot of thought. It's not something that I haven't thought about. Today we've been talking about predestination, and tomorrow we're going to talk about gun safety, and I'm going to approach that from a perspective that maybe a lot of people may not expect a person to approach it from. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on Friday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Thursday, the 18th of November of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, and maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.